This video is for all the pantsers out there who want to participate in Preptober but have no idea where to start. So this year I'm participating in NaNoWriMo, and last year I actually won NaNoWriMo, and because of that I really want to win NaNoWriMo again. So I am really taking Preptober a little bit more seriously than I did last year. With that said, I am not someone who outlines or plans much of my writing, and I find that there isn't a lot of content on the internet about how pantsers' processes differ from person to person, because being a pantser is not just one thing. So I'm working on a sequel for NaNoWriMo of my contemporary fantasy novel, Seventh Virtue. This book is called Sunless Ground, and the first thing I've done to prep for NaNoWriMo is assess the circumstances of where the book is currently at. So last year my book, Seventh Virtue, was in a really strong place before I started NaNoWriMo. I actually wasn't writing it from the beginning. I was right in the middle. And the timing was actually quite perfect because all of NaNoWriMo, that 50,000 words, took me from the midpoint of the book to the climax of the book. So that meant there was a lot of action, and that also meant I had a really strong foundation for where I was going because I knew what the climax was going to be. So I had something to work up to. My first step this month was to assess where I was at in Sunless Ground, and the truth is I'm in a very different place than I was when I started Seventh Virtue. So by the time NaNoWriMo came around for Seventh Virtue, I think I was at like the 100K mark in drafting. So it was a lot of words. I'd also previously done Camp NaNoWriMo in that July to really flesh out the world. So I was feeling really strong about the magic system, the conflict, and I also had a strong direction of where the plot was going to go. This time around, I don't have that. So this is why this was my first step, really assessing the circumstances, because I don't want to treat my prep the same way I treated my prep last year. I'm not in the same place. Assessing the circumstances for me was understanding that I'm at around 7,000 words in the Sunless Ground draft. I've finished the first chapter of Sunless Ground. I'm still a little bit foggy on whether or not I want to expand that first chapter a little bit more. I've also decided that there are going to be 2 point of view characters again, and I think I'm going to switch a little bit more frequently between them in comparison to Seventh Virtue. Once the circumstances were assessed, I started brainstorming a to-do list, and this is going to be the heart of this video because this to-do list is probably the best thing I've ever created in terms of prep because it is tailored to my process as a pantser. I have created a Preptober to-do list, and that to-do list is broken down into a couple of categories. Feel free to steal this and to also customize it to your needs. This is where I really recommend if you are a pantser assessing the circumstances, because assessing the circumstances of where my project was currently at and also what was confusing me about my project allowed me to figure out what I needed to flesh out that would set me up for drafting. That is a sub goal I also want to suggest, is trying to figure out what will actually lead you to success. What do you need in order to have a successful NaNoWriMo? So for me, when I was thinking of what do I need, I really need a solid understanding of what the conflict is so that I'm not like running around in circles. I need a solid understanding of how to bridge a couple of the old plot threads from Seventh Virtue, which we'll get into in this list. And another goal was to understand the world building of a particular setting a little bit more because it's even more important than it was in Seventh Virtue. So that led me to creating this list that has a couple of categories. We have world building, ideation, admin, character, and plotting. So let's go through each bullet point. I do have a vlog where I ideated this myself on camera in real time, but I want to take a little bit more time to go over it in this video. So the first section was world building, and I have several points under world building. The number one is to reread the outline of Seventh Virtue. So while I didn't outline Seventh Virtue because I'm a pantser, I reverse outlined it because I don't have a good memory and I just needed to quickly reference something. If I forgot what happened in chapter 18, then I could just quickly reference the reverse outline. I still haven't done this, but it's on the list. So the reason I like having the list is so that I actually know what I have and have not done in Preptober. So a sub point for reread the outline of Seventh Virtue is to take note of current/unresolved plot lines. So I had 3 that I could think of. There's a character named Bev that I want to like circle back to in book 2. There is also a character named Jordan who I'm thinking I want to put back into Sunless Ground because I kind of wrote her out in Seventh Virtue, but I think she's an interesting character and I want to give her a little bit more time. So being able to write down those bullet points reminds me, okay, I want to see why while I'm brainstorming if I can think of a way to add Jordan back into the book, or if I can figure out a way to circle back to Bev. And then I also have a bullet note about Lonan's issues, because Lonan has issues and I just want to figure them out a little bit more. Like, what are his issues? What caused them? I mean, I kind of know the overarching, you know, the poor guy has been going through a lot in Seventh Virtue. What triggers them? Things like that. How does he deal with them? How do they impact him in his waking hours versus when he's asleep? Things like that. I also have a note to reread the Seventh Virtue World Building Bible. I have an entire video if you are also a pantser and trying to figure out how to world build your fantasy world and you've never done it like me. I have an entire video showing how I did that from start to finish. I will link it in the description. I think it's very pantser friendly, fantasy beginner friendly, because I'm not very good at fantasy. It's not a genre that I read that much, and it's not a genre that I'm actually good at writing. And that is just a really quick point for me to just refresh my mind on the rules of the world. It's my world, but I don't remember it. So that is the purpose of that point. I also want to brainstorm the 4th Roost and 7th Roost connection, which is going to be Reeve's main conflict. Reeve is one of my narrators, and I already figured out a bit of a goal for her. So yes, I have sort of started to figure out the conflicts. I really wanted to see if I could bridge 2 floaty conflicts that really had no direction from book 1 together. So then I could kind of knock 2 birds out with 1 stone, and I have already done that. So I can actually cross this one off on the list because that's very exciting. I also wanted to brainstorm the 7th Roost architecture, especially because the 7th Roost, which is, I will link an entire video explaining 7th Virtue, though most of you watching this probably already know. There are several magical families in my book, and each magical family is called a roost, like a bird roost. The 7th Roost is the family of like the main characters basically. And the house that they live in is kind of interesting because they're like mazes. So I wrote down in brackets mazes so that I can go and really think about how the house itself functions just for a second, even if it's not that much of thinking. What does it look like? Is it easy to navigate? Who knows how to navigate it? Those are questions. My bullet points are really like brainstorming prompts. And I think that's a more accessible way for me to think about outlining as an act of brainstorming rather than like an act of putting things together, because I don't know how to put things together. My brain doesn't work like that. I also wanted to brainstorm the 7th Roost mysterious history, read the back jacket summary, because I had started writing a back jacket summary, which we'll get to in the ideation phase, and I was bullshitting the ideas, and I was like, what if the 7th Roost had a mysterious history they need to uncover, not knowing what the hell the mysterious history is? So I was like, okay, well, under world building, I'm gonna have to figure out what the mysterious history is. I've already done that, so I can also cross that off on my list. And then I also wanted to finally brainstorm the basic 4th Roost lore. I have an understanding of it now. I just want to like, it's basically in my notes already because I did this in tandem with brainstorming of the 4th and 7th Roost connection, but I just want to like sort through it and add it to my world building Bible. And then the next phase is ideation. Ideation and world building are like my 2 most important categories, so I put them first. Under ideation, I want to write a back jacket summary for Sunless Ground, which I have already done. You're gonna hear this summary so many times on this channel. Harrison is in danger, captured at the 7th Roost in a deal that freed Reeve. There's no way to escape, especially as he seemingly made enemies with the man he cares for most. Reeve is unhappy. While physically free from her family's terror, she spends most of her time worrying for friends she's not sure are still alive and resentful of Darren, the man who helped get her out. But when Darren goes missing and Lonan narrowly escapes the 7th Roost without Harrison, it seems things couldn't get worse. Without the protection of Lonan, and with his own death impending, Harrison makes internal allies, one of whom is harboring secrets more sinister than anyone's expected. Meanwhile, Reeve fixates on searching for the 4th Virtue, whose tragic history could be the key to ending her family's tyranny, and most importantly, reuniting her with Harrison. So this is one of the biggest suggestions I have for pantsers, is to write a back jacket summary, like literally what you would think would show up on the back of your book, even when you have no idea what the plot is, because it sounds like I know what the plot is, but I have no idea. But this gives me something that I can brainstorm off of. I've been doing this, oh gosh, I think since Feeding Habits, so since 2020 for all of my projects, and I find it really, really, really helpful as a pantser because it gives me big picture and some of the conflict as well as a minor direction without being too much plotting. I also wanted to do Michelle Schusterman's paragraph plotting method, which I will link in the description. I did this last year on like Halloween, so the day before NaNoWriMo for 7th Virtue, and I found it very helpful in terms of understanding what the conflicts were, where the book would go, and just to get an overall understanding of the plot. I also wanted to comb through my Cinderella retelling for plot ideas. I wanted to see if I had any scene ideas left over from the Cinderella retelling that I could kind of slot in here. I also want to comb through Alanis and Birdstrike for plot ideas. Alanis and Birdstrike were 2 books that were supposed to be a spin-off duology, my first fostered spin-off, but I never ended up writing it, but it follows the same characters that it follows in Sunless Ground, Seventh Virtue, and I want to see if there are any plot ideas I can propagate from there, especially because Alanis really focuses on the relationship between a side character in Sunless Ground as well as our main character Harrison, and so I want to see if there's any moments that I can steal between the 2 of them again and put them into Sunless Ground. I also wanted to take some time just to do a random mind map, like take 2 hours with like a giant whiteboard and do a big mind map of whatever that comes to mind just once before November, so I can like add more ideas to my bucket of ideas. And then I wanted to figure out what the antagonistic forces are. What are the antagonists doing? Because I really don't know. And again, not knowing what the conflict is really hard in a conflict-driven book. So I want an understanding of, okay, so-and-so is doing this, and this is what they're trying to do to get in the way of the protagonists, and this person is doing this. I just have many antagonists, so I want to just sort them all out. Admin is my favorite category because it's like the easiest one to actually accomplish things off of the list because it's very simple tasks. But the first one was to transfer my iPhone notes to my computer. I will link a video in the description where I talk about how I organize all of my writing documents. It's the exact same process, and so sometimes I will type up notes on my phone. I just want to get them onto my laptop, and unfortunately I don't have the beautiful Apple harmony between my laptop and my phone, and so I have to manually transfer them to my Word document. Then I want to organize those notes by color coding them, and color coding is very, very simple on my end. I leave notes black if I haven't written them yet. I will color code them red if they've already been written. I will color code them purple if I'm no longer using those ideas. Those are really like the main colors that I use. So really all I was doing was color coding things red because I've written a little bit of Sunless Ground already. Then I wanted to compile a scene list of all my current scene ideas. This is the most important, and I have done it. I have 57 ideas, which is a lot more than I thought. What I did was I just read through every single note, and my notes are literally just like info dumping of me like coming up with random ideas. Let's say like I got a random idea for Harrison to go to Walmart, like, and that's one of the ideas like I would write down in my bullet point for a scene list: Harrison goes to Walmart. So this is the most important for me as a pantser because what I do is I just cross them out as I write them, and it makes it easier for me to see what I have written and what I haven't. Especially if I'm stuck, I can also figure out, okay, this is what I want to happen next. My next plan of action is to actually order that. So from that scene list, I'm going to break them into categories. I will paste a screenshot of how I did this last year with Seventh Virtue, basically under like subplot ideas. Sometimes I have like flashbacks for Reeve, so I'll have a subheading that says Reeve flashbacks, and I'll put every idea for Reeve flashbacks under there, and then from there I'm gonna try to put them in an order, which is basically going to be a mini outline. Then I want to set up a Scrivener document for Sunless Ground. I don't write in Scrivener, I write in Word because I'm very used to Word, but I like to reverse outline. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in the Seventh Virtue Scrivener document because I have all my character work and world building stuff in there too, and I don't want to copy them over. So I'm just going to put the individual chapters in a new manuscript folder. Then I wanted to make a Sunless Ground document folder on my laptop. Literally didn't have one. I just wanted a folder that says Sunless Ground and all the Sunless Ground stuff goes in there. I already did that because it was super easy. That was the first thing I did. And then I want to update the Roost Power Breakdown document. Roost Power Breakdown document is something that I made in tandem to my world building Bible because I just wanted something that was basically a much smaller version of the Bible that very quickly listed out the powers of each character because there are a lot of characters. If I forget, oh, what's Lonan's magic again? I just pop up the document. Okay, I'm not a good fantasy writer. Maybe people know that by heart. I don't, so I forget, and I just have it in that document. So the next thing I wanted to accomplish on my Preptober list was character. I only have 2 things for character because I really like to characterize by doing. I'm gonna add one other point here. So the first one was to solidify Chris's magical abilities. So Chris is one of the characters who makes an alliance with Harrison, and I have iPhone notes on this, so I made a note for myself to check my notes already because I don't really know what their magical abilities are, and I want to figure that out because that's pretty important. Then I want to solidify Matthew's magical abilities. Matthew is also a really important character and a like best friend to Chris. They both have very important magical abilities, and because they're very important, I probably should figure it out. And I have no idea. So right now they're just very important for no reason. I just need to figure it out. And then I want to brainstorm Mystery Man, who is going to be my new antagonist. So I don't know his name. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know anything about him. So this is going to be building a character from the ground up, but I'm actually kind of excited about it. And my last heading for my list is plotting, and plotting is very minimal. It is to outline the basic Act 1 structure. I'm also gonna put under there to order my scene list in whatever way. Like, even if there are huge gaps between the scene list, just putting those scenes in order is gonna be helpful for me. I might actually do those on physical note cards because I'm very bad at doing this kind of thing on a computer. I like to move things around very easily, and even doing it in Scrivener is overwhelming. That is how I'm approaching Preptober this year. It's literally a list. I highly recommend breaking down the list of things you have to do by category if you're a pantser, because just trying to figure it out all at once is very overwhelming for me. And if organization isn't something that comes super naturally to you, like it is for me, it doesn't come naturally at all. I hope that this is helpful and you can use it as a jumping off point. Obviously, this is very specific to my project, but you can also easily translate it to yours. You could probably have a category dedicated to conflicts. You could have a category dedicated to setting, things like that. But these are the things that I deemed were most important for me to figure out before NaNoWriMo even begins. That's all I wanted to share. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you guys are doing for Preptober in the comments if you're participating, and I'll see you in another one. Bye.